Okay, obviously Captain America is the better name, but I'm just saying if he called himself Captain Falcon, he could use the Falcon Punch. Hello everybody and welcome to my review of the season finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or should I say Captain America and the Winter Soldier, considering that we finally got our Captain America, Sam Wilson, the rightful Captain America, and oh, it was truly glorious. I totally loved it. But before we get into all of that, obviously I'm just going to give you my spoiler-free thoughts, and obviously I know I just gave a kind of a spoiler, but it happens in the first 2 minutes of the episode, so calm down. It's fine. You're not going to be the episode's not ruined for you. I promise. But we're going to do some spoiler-free thoughts up front, and then we're going to dive right into spoilers. Now, obviously, my spoiler-free thoughts are going to be fairly short here because this is the finale, and everything that I'm going to be saying will mostly be a spoiler. So, just to keep it fairly short up front here, I thought that this was a fantastic conclusion to this season. Unlike most Marvel third acts, which are either fairly standard or sometimes even disappointing or lackluster, see WandaVision for an example of that, but a lot of the movies kind of have the same problem too, where they're just like, oh, that's good, or they sort of like fall flat on their face. I think the only like Marvel movie that I thought like had a stellar ending was probably Civil War to my mind. There's probably a few others as well that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but that's the only one that like truly stands out in my immediate memory. But other than Civil War, this might rank right up there with that, because I feel like this finale had everything that I wanted from a third act, a final episode of a show like this. Not only did it have a ton of action, that action was also inventive. It was something different. It gave us something new. It had something for every character to do that actually revealed character in a lot of their actions, and some surprising character development, some that we had predicted in sort of previous episodes but sort of came to a fore here, and some turns for some characters that I did not expect to have their arc finished the way that they did in this show. I was actually deeply surprised that they zigged when I thought they were going to zag with certain characters. So excellent job there. Some really great moments throughout all of that, but where this episode really shined, in my opinion, was the emotional finale, the emotional catharsis. The last, 20 minutes or so of this episode were magnifique. There was so much great stuff in the final few moments of this episode that I was just, floored by. I was floored by pretty much everything, that the MCU would go this far, that they would be this direct in their statements and what they wanted to say, and ultimately, without spoiling too much, giving me probably one of my favorite MCU moments ever. In a franchise defined by kind of hedging its bets and trying to have the broadest possible appeal and saying some things. I'm not going to say that MCU hasn't said very expressly important things, especially with movies like Black Panther, for example, but this feels to a degree like an extension of that, actually, of Black Panther, where this show really felt like it had something important to say and direct to say to what's going on with us now. And I was so shocked by that. And then everything after that was just emotionally biting, but heartfelt. And it's such a hard thing to weigh those two things, where you feel like this is hitting me in the gut with my emotions, but also saying something important, and inspiring me. So few things are able to do all three of those things at once, and this did it. Saying something biting, getting heartfelt, and also inspire me. I have to say that maybe this might not be my favorite MCU thing. I'd have to sit back and sort of let it hit me for a little while, but certainly it is definitely in the running for that. And that one scene, which I'm sure we all know what I'm talking about if you've seen the episode, truly stood out. But we're going to talk about all that in my spoiler-filled section. So if you have not seen the episode yet, feel free to step off here, because we're going to get right into spoilers. But before we get right into spoilers, so I kind of lied, we're not getting right into spoilers, just a quick little announcement for everybody. For those of you who haven't heard, next week I'm going to be having no Monday or Wednesday videos like I usually do on this channel, because my Friday video is going to be a big video that is premiering on this channel at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Standard Time, and it's going to be called The Nature of Work. That video is going to be one of the biggest videos I've ever done on this channel. It is also one I'm super proud of, and it's going to contain a really big and important announcement about not only this channel, but my personal life as well. And I'm honestly very excited, like super excited to share it with all of you. So please come and join me next week, Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time for the premiere of that video. It'll obviously be up after that if you can't make that. But in honor of that and how important this video is to me and how big it is, there will be no Monday or Wednesday video next week on this channel. So just be prepared for that. So please join me next week if you have the time next Friday. And considering that there's no Falcon and the Winter Soldier next week, you have no excuse. I'm kidding. Come if you want to, come if you don't, but I think it'll be cool. I think you'll enjoy it. Anyways, enough about me. Who cares about me? Let's talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This episode starts off right where last episode left off, with Karli attacking the GCR and Sam on his way to go and rescue everyone, and getting Bucky and Sharon Carter involved as well. Sharon having that full Mission Impossible tech with the taking off the face thing, which I find weird that they didn't ultimately use within the episode, that she has this sort of face-changing technology that she just takes off. It's just sort of like a Mission Impossible reference. I thought it was cool. It seemed like there was a Chekhov's face thing, but I guess not, which, fine. It's okay. You don't need to use it. It's okay. It's there. It's there if you want it. And right up front, during this whole opening section, I do want to say that the cinematography and lighting during this section, the reds and blues, were absolutely wonderful. I mean, not only the reds and blues sort of evoking Captain America type feel, the sort of America colors as well, but also the color of police sirens, which obviously evokes a lot of things for the Black community, especially this week, I'm sure. So I just thought there was a lot of, like, I don't know, symbolism within the use of red and blue within the colors and sort of what they represent at different times. I just thought the cinematography reflecting that was really, really awesome in the opening of this episode. But then we get Falcon flying in through the window and revealing his new Wakanda-made Captain American costume. And oh my gosh, that costume looked truly amazing. Honestly, the only disappointment I have with the costume is that I didn't get to see it on a big screen. I mean, honestly, I can't wait for the next movie that Sam Wilson's going to be in, because I am so looking forward to being in a theater and just seeing what he looks like in that costume in, you know, a huge screen, because it looked so wonderful. Like, I loved my Steve Rogers costumes, and Steve Rogers is one of my favorite superheroes of all time, but I gotta say it, Sam Wilson's costume, fan-frickin-tastic. I absolutely adored it. Just wonderful. And the wings, it was just, I could gush about it all day. This would be a super long video if I kept doing that, but fantastic costume. Then we have Sharon and Bucky going after different members of the Flag Smashers, while Falcon fights the French guy, Dvorich? What was his name? Dovich. I can never remember his name. He's very forgettable for me. The only thing I remember about him is he has a French accent, which seems like a bad thing to remember about a person. The only thing to remember about a person. Also, Captain America Sam makes some French jokes about Dovich at one point, like French fries and a baguette. Not only are those jokes okay at this point, but they also feel like circa 2001 time frame, so a little bit of an old joke there, Sam. Sort of get updated on this. But ultimately, I thought that fight between Falcon and Dovich was very cool. I liked seeing the sort of showing of his powers, that he was like using the booster on his back to shove him, and sort of like using his sort of Falcon technology to sort of offset the fact that he does not have the super soldier serum. I truly thought the usages of his costume throughout this episode, like one point when he was punched by Karli, he sort of blocked it with the shield and the wings went into the ground to sort of brace him. That was very cool. Like, just such smart usages of the costumes to sort of offset the fact that he's fighting people who are technically more powerful than him. So great job to making that feel believable. The one thing that I'll say about this early part of the episode, with sort of Bucky and Sharon and Falcon all doing different things, and then a helicopter was taking off with the people that the Flag Smashers had kidnapped, I was a bit confused by some of the goals here. Normally in action sequence, you always want to know where a character is going to, what their aim is, and during this opening sequence, it was a little bit muddied. I wasn't entirely sure who was supposed to be going where and after who, and for what reasons, what the goals were. So was all a little bit muddy towards beginning, but it got better as the scenes went along. But that's my one knock against the episode, is that the first 5-10 minutes of this were a little bit unclear in what everyone's goals were. I also like Karli calling Bucky and them having sort of a conversation, and Bucky trying to talk her down, saying like, the people that you kill, you will remember them, trying to connect with her that way. Obviously that's not as powerful for her, because Karli doesn't really care all that much about the people that she's killing. She's going to be more callous because she's sort of seeing the larger goal. And Bucky was a character who who never really had a larger goal when he was the Winter Soldier. He didn't really have that sort of larger ideological stance, but I like that she calls that out in him, and Bucky says, I do know what it's like to fight for something larger than myself, and I failed twice. And it's kind of funny because ultimately I don't think he failed in a lot of his aspects. Fighting way back in World War II against, the Nazis and also Red Skull, he did ultimately succeed through Steve. And so I feel like, he did win some ideological battles, even though he didn't feel that way. So I sort of like that conversation between the two of them. I thought that was very nice. Also, we have Sharon knocking out or possibly killing one of those dudes very brutally with some sort of virus thing. It was very, very disgusting and very, very hinting at later on that she was going to be revealed to be the power broker, that she's willing to do very dark things. So I like that little hint and tease of what's going to be coming later on in the episode with how brutally she took out that guy. Then Carly and the group decide to steal some more hostages for everybody, and Carly's kind of off the deep end at this point, saying, we'll kill people, we'll do whatever to stop this. It doesn't even matter if we die, ready to be a martyr sort of thing with her, with who she was, and everyone feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that. I've talked about enough on this channel, my feelings of Carly going a bit too far, but I feel like using that sort of juxtaposed, like her martyrdom and wanting to be a martyr, sort of juxtaposed with what Sam says later on in the episode works much better here. So I liked this, even though it was like very much like, woof, guess she's off the deep end now. But I think that worked. But then, surprisingly, we have Walker showing up in his faux Captain America costume, and I love that his shield just immediately he throws it and is just knocked away and is somewhat useless throughout most of this because it's not made of vibranium. I thought that was kind of hilarious and very apropos. Clearly he's dealing with PTSD. The only knock I have against him showing up is actually just a line exchange that he has with Carly. Walker shows up and Carly says, I'm sorry I killed your friend. I didn't mean to kill people that don't matter. And of course Walker's gonna be like, you think Lamar didn't matter? I'm like, that didn't read like a real thing that Carly would say in that untactful a way in that moment. Like clearly her whole shtick is that she cares about one world, one people, so I don't think she would say Lamar didn't matter. It just felt like a line that was being used to sort of like piss Walker off. Kind of a weak line, in my opinion. Again, it's a small thing, but it threw me out of the scene. I'm like, that line very felt as just trying to create a thing between Walker and her that felt a little bit forced when there was already enough there with her having killed Lamar. So a little bit of a weak line there to motivate Walker. But then Bucky shows up and plays the hero and saves the hostages while Walker fights these people off. But then the bus starts to fall over the edge and Bucky falls down as well. Cool little fight there where he's like using his arm to try and stop himself from falling over and protecting himself from above from Carly. I thought that was very, very cool to see. But then we got probably the most surprising moment of the episode for me, honestly, was Walker. He has a moment to choose to go after Carly or save the hostages, and he chooses to save the hostages. He uses his superpower to try and pull them back up. Ultimately, he fails, and Falcon is the one to save them in a really cool moment where he's using his tech to sort of push up the car. I thought that was great. But I was just more surprised by the fact that Walker got a little bit of a redemption moment here. Now, clearly, as we see in the end of the episode, they're setting him up to be a U.S. agent and possibly work with Valentina, who might be Lady Hydra, as I looked up last episode. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is possibly playing Lady Valentina, possibly going to be showing up in the Black Widow movie as well. She would have appeared in that before this show would have come out if COVID hadn't happened. But yeah, it was just interesting to see him get redemption. I think a lot of us were sort of dead set on him being like, this complete jerk and asshole, and he has been that, and obviously he did terrible, brutal things at the end of episode 4. So I'm not entirely sure I feel completely comfortable with him getting redemption, but ultimately I like that the show walked that line, because I'm not here saying like, I think they did a terrible thing by showing him have redemption. But I'm not entirely sure I feel comfortable with that. And a show like this, as all of its themes are, should make me uncomfortable with that. What does that make me feel that this guy who did such a brutal act can also be a hero in some ways? And I like that the show raised that question while not fully forgiving him, because clearly he's kind of being set up at the end to possibly be a villain into the future. We don't know. He still has that moral ambiguity to him that isn't gotten rid of by this moment, but he ultimately isn't just become a black and white villain. that we expected him to after the after credit sequence of last episode. So I ultimately really kind of liked that. I felt you could have maybe done a little bit more with his character in this episode, but clearly they're setting him up to appear later on, so there's obviously so much more they can do with his character. So I'm excited to see where they go with him. And so ultimately right now, while I still think there is more to be said with him, they're clearly going to say more, and here I was enjoying that I was uncomfortable with some of the choices here, and I like sitting with that uncomfortability here. Also, just briefly mention, I like the flight sequence where Falcon sort of shows off his ability to fly as Captain America, and sort of like him using Red Wing to sort of figure out if the lady had flight training and sort of timing with her and using her earbuds. I wasn't sure why she had earbuds in her phone still after everything that was going on, but that's fine. I'll get past that. But it was just a cool moment to sort of see that as a Captain America that can fly, he can do some different things than Steve Rogers ever could, and some creative ways to use his specific abilities as Captain America. I thought that was a fun usage of him through this action sequence. But then Falcon shows up and saves the hostages, and then we get a fog machine from Dovich, and so they go into this underground tunnel for the final act as Sharon shows up as well. Obviously, everyone does the sort of like walking around in the dark looking for each other thing that we get in all the movies. Walk this way. Who's going to find each other? At what point? Who's going to get the upper hand thing? And surprisingly, it ends up being Dovich, Sharon Carter, and Carly who find each other first. And Sharon is revealed to be the Shadow Broker. Bum, bum, bum. I'm so shocked and surprised. Not really. We all kind of expected that, right? I mean, we were all kind of expecting this at this point, that Sharon was the Shadow Broker, and that she might have ulterior motives and want Carly. Clearly, she can't get the super soldier serum anymore that she was after, and so now she wants Carly to come and work for her, sort of thing. But obviously, that's not going to happen. Dovich shows up to complicate things. Sharon shoots Dovich, who threatens her to reveal her identity, and Carly shoots Sharon as well. Nice little reveal there. Again, obviously, as we see in the after credit sequence, Sharon is being set up for more things. So ultimately, I'm like, if it wasn't clear that she was going to be continuing on in other things, whether it be another season of the show or in other media in the MCU, I would be disappointed here, because I'm like, oh, she didn't really do all that much throughout this series, and her reveal was kind of just like kind of felt perfunctory here. And I do feel like they could have done a little bit more to integrate the Power Broker a little bit more into the series as a threat, and sort of hinting at her throughout. She kind of felt a little bit ancillary the last few episodes, so I was a little bit disappointed there. But ultimately, I'm glad that this isn't sort of the end for her, that she is going to be playing into larger storylines down the line. So that is very intriguing to see. So a little bit of a disappointment with how she was sort of revealed, and her utilization within this series, but I am excited to see this sort of morally ambiguous Sharon going forward. It honestly just makes her character so much more interesting than when she was initially revealed in, I think, Civil War, or it might have been Winter Soldier, where she was initially revealed, and she was just kind of like lazy, boring, and seemed like a replacement for Agent Carter that Steve was interested in, and always felt a little bit weird for that. So I'm glad that they're kind of making her distinct in her own right through this choice. Then we have Bucky and Walker capturing the rest of the Flag Smashers. Walker gets like a Abraham Lincoln line mercy. I forget the exact line, but it was fairly funny. And again, I was just surprised to see Walker getting redemption and showing mercy, not something that you would expect from this character at this point in his arc. So great for being unexpected there. And I like Bucky sort of saying, like, don't say Lincoln quotes. It sounds awkward in your mouth. Then we get the fight scene between Carly and Falcon. Kind of a lot of sort of reiterating what we'd already said, and the difference between the two of them. Falcon trying to talk her down, Carly not wanting to, and ultimately dying, being shot by Sharon. And by the way, I just realized right now that I've been saying Falcon for a few times here. Captain America. He is Captain America now, so I will get that in my brain. Apologies to Sam for that. But I liked that Sharon was the one to kill Carly. It sort of hints towards Captain America that, she is a little bit more morally ambiguous without fully revealing her hand. So great reveal there. Then we get Falcon bringing out Carly's dead body. I got very Arkham City vibes from that, by the way. Did anyone else get like ending of Arkham City vibes with Captain America bringing out Carly's body and sort of laying it out on a stretcher? Very much felt like Batman bringing out the Joker at the end of Arkham City, to my mind. Very similar imagery. But then we get probably my favorite scene, definitely my favorite scene in this series, and one of my favorite scenes in the MCU, probably of all time. I'd have to, again, sit with it. I just watched this episode just now, but I was absolutely loving this, where Falcon goes up to the senators who were voting to, remove people and place different people in camps and gives them a full indictment in front of the media, fully utilizing his symbol as Captain America, as a black man in the Captain America suit. Such wonderful lines. I could probably do an analysis of that entire speech if I wanted to, but some things that spoke out to me and still stuck with me right now is that, he's sort of saying that feeling of helplessness, we have a common cause. That very much read to me, whether it was intended to or not when they wrote this, like a call out to what we've been dealing this past year with the pandemic. We all, every single one of us on this planet have had to deal with the pandemic in some way, shape, or form. None of us were fully immune from it, from the richest people to the poorest people, the most marginalized to the not marginalized. We've all felt it to some degree or another. Now, that does not mean we've all reacted to this common cause in the same way, but I really did feel that feeling of Captain America really saying, like, we have a common cause now, that feeling of helplessness that we all feel. You need to feel that now. You need to feel that the actions that you are taking make people feel that way every day. Your choices make people feel that. You're choosing to move people around, and just having all this power does that. And you need to do better. And the senator saying, like, oh, you don't understand. And he's like, I'm a black man wearing the stars and stripes. What don't I understand? I understand the complicated nature of that, and I love the call-outs through the editing in this sequence where he's saying, I see the judgment. We cut to Isaiah Bradley, who obviously is judging him for wearing the Captain America outfit. But I just absolutely loved that moment. There's also another great scene where they cut to Bucky. That I forget the exact line, but I just remember liking that they cut to Bucky at that moment. So apologies, I'm forgetting the exact line here. But such a great indictment from Captain America there. And I really loved his final line where he says, you have as much power as an angry god or an angry teenager. Sort of calling out that, there's a reason that Carly had so many people that were influenced by her, that stood up for her cause, because the government is failing them. And honestly, this feels like an indictment of today's government, the government's reaction to not only to the pandemic here in the United States and potentially other countries around the world, but also to the failing of the government to address issues that are affecting marginalized people. I don't want to overread my politics into this, but I do feel that there is an element of that indictment of the failures of government to recognize the struggles of marginalized people. There's a reason that marginalized people sort of form communities and bond together and are fighting back and trying to find community together, as opposed to relying on these governmental systems that continually fail us. I think that is such a powerful message today. I don't know if the people who should hear it will hear it through this MCU show, but nonetheless, powerful, powerful statement. And I'm so glad that the MCU did that in this show. So props to them. Props to them for allowing this to appear in one of their shows. But then I immediately after the speech that Bucky and Captain America sort of have a quick moment, sort of Bucky saying, I was sort of zoning out. I didn't really hear everything. I just heard Black Man and the Stars and Stripes. That was very funny, very good. Then we get the Flag Smashers getting put away, and then their vehicle gets blown up, killed by Zemo's second-hand man, the Butler. He was doing stuff. It was Chekhov's Butler all along. I was very excited to see that. That was very fun. I like Zemo sort of getting a moment on the raft where he smiles. Again, seems like Zemo's being set up for future things. A lot of set up for future things at the end of this show, whether in for future MCU's projects or potentially another season of this show. So I'm really liking that. There's a lot of still ongoing hints and storylines towards future MCU things. Then we get the Julia Louis-Dreyfus scene that I was talking about before, where we see that Walker is U.S. agent. Thought that's cool. Again, clearly setting him up for other stuff. I've already talked about that a bunch. Then we get another emotional gut punch scene where Bucky comes in and apologizes to the old man whose son he killed that we learned way back in episode 1. This was a really, really well done scene with very limited dialogue. He sort of comes in and says, I killed your son. I apologize. And the old man says, why? And he says, I didn't have a choice. And everything just was left after that with kind of silence. Very powerful, and I love the choice to just have as little dialogue in that scene as possible, and really hit me hard. And then we got the scene where Bucky sort of gives gives Steve's notebook back to the therapist, saying, I've made my amends, and come to terms with the fact that I wasn't able to control things when I did the things that I did as the Winter Soldier. So I liked that. That was a very, very strong and powerful end to Bucky's arc through this. Then we get my second favorite section of this episode after Captain America's speech to the senators. We get Sam and Isaiah having one final moment. Obviously, Isaiah's nephew, I believe, I don't know him, but I know he becomes a Young Avenger at one point in the comics, so they're clearly hinting that he's sort of being set up to be a Young Avenger at some point with the references to him throughout this season. I don't remember his name or what character he plays, but I do know that he's supposed to be a Young Avenger. But anyways, back to Sam and Isaiah. Really powerful scene here. I like that. I think Sam's most powerful line in that segment was, we helped build this country and nobody's going to tell me that I can't fight for it. That would be a disservice to all the people who came before, obviously talking about the black community and black slavery and the blood that was spilled by many black people fighting for their freedom and for their rights. A really, really, again, powerful scene. And I like that Isaiah kind of gets inspired by it, but doesn't fully reciprocate and say, I agree with you. I like that, again, we're sitting in the uncomfortability here, that this show does not say that this is the easy answer, that, it's cool and right that, Sam is becoming Captain America, and that's 100% okay for every member of the black community. I like that the show is acknowledging that. And again, that's a larger conversation that I should not be the main voice in terms of feelings on that, but I liked that this scene really inspired, but didn't go too far and forgive or forget and sort of wash away some of the things that could be taken issue with a black Captain America. So I appreciate that the scene was able to definitely handle both things. Sam takes Isaiah to the Steve Rogers Memorial, and there is now a memorial in there for Isaiah and his contributions to the country and remembering him as a super soldier as well. This is I really love that and how powerful it was to sort of see Isaiah have a statue in there, sort of remembering black history that often got erased or forgotten. Too often black history is just left off of the textbooks, and I'm liking that Sam is sort of using this moment to say, no, we are going to remember this man and remember what he did, and we are not going to allow black history to be forgotten, the pain that black people felt to be forgotten. It was absolutely wonderful, and I thought that scene was, it hit me, and I can't imagine what it would mean to, the black community as well. So, I thought it was a very, very powerful moment. But then, of course, we have to end the series on a party. Just great, sort of barbecue party sort of thing. Was really nice, sort of, again, ending on community, one people, one world. I was like that it's sort of subtly sort of echoing Carly's statements and sort of that idea that Carly wasn't necessarily wrong, that we should be borderless, we should come together. Maybe she didn't do it the right way, but that idea, that inspiration is not fully gone and sort of hinted at in this final moments. Also, Bucky being an uncle. Bucky was being such an uncle during that whole scene. People were playing with his arm and everything. That was it was nice to see Uncle Buck doing all that. So that was kind of fun. And then we get our after credit sequence, which clearly hints that Carter gets a full pardon, and now she's going to have even more power as the power broker and access to government technology and information. So that is also very, very cool to sort of see where her arc is going to be going into the future. So ultimately, like I said, I think I really adored this episode. I think, it's not my favorite episode of this season so far, but it had two of my favorite scenes throughout the MCU ever. With the stunning indictment from Captain America, as well as the final scene between Sam and Isaiah. Truly fantastic. Wonderfully done, biting commentary from this episode by the MCU. Something that I had not really expected from the MCU in such a direct way. It was just all around such a great episode, and I think for me a very solid finale to this show. I hope that this show gets a second season, but honestly I am now more excited than ever to see Sam take up the mantle of Captain America in the movies proper. Just to see him, like I said earlier, on the big screen will be so exciting. To see him in that suit on the big screen being Captain America. My body is ready for it, and I'm so excited. So that's all I have to say on this. I will say, now that we're done with this show, I'm not going to be reviewing any shows immediately in the future just because there's nothing directly that I can think of that's coming up, but I will be back for Loki when it premieres in June, and I will also be reviewing Star Trek Lower Decks when that premieres as well. Also, I might review something else, so if there is a TV show that is coming up in the near future that you may want me to review, I'd love to hear your thoughts of that down in the comments below, but I'd also love to hear all of your thoughts on this episode, so let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments below on this episode as well. Don't forget, next week, like I said, is the Nature of Work video. I'm very excited for that. Don't forget to join me if you can at the premiere at 11 a.m. Pacific time next Friday for that, and no Monday or Wednesday video as a result. But beyond all of that, and also I have a Patreon that you can help me out at, but beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. Huh, here we go. So I'm finally here, performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you want to clap, as I thank you all with this patron rap. Catherine Lambeth, Miranda Janelle, Ashley Allen, Bo Kikio, Eli Bergmas, Aslan Solstice, John Cool, Greg Gillum, Stephen Kleinard, Randy Thompson, Felicia Toast, Wellington Marcus, Boyd Earl and Mary Beth Earl, Stephen Schuhart, Wayne Twitchell, Corey Honkinen, and Vale Dunn, A Man Chooses, A Slave Obeys, Ish the Mad, Dominic Noble, Buttoneer, John Steele, What Does God Need with a Starship? Michael Beam, Meadow Whisperer, William Steele, Chamomile Tea, BBD, Munir Amlani, Jason Knott, John Weatherby, Maeve Liama, Bree Beecher, Andrew K., Nathan Steele, Sky Skinner, Sean Piper, Flynn, Wen Dizzle Bizzle, Tiffany Danger, Cass the Lass, Laura Dermero, Geek Filter, Mari Neckar, Troy Stull, Gretchen Badger, Pissed and Twisted Garage, Bush, Jane Packard, James Krivda, Din, W, Randy E.D., Ellie O'Dare, John H. McDougall, Celestial John, Jacob Tovar, Sarah Bystam, Jessica Chapman, Lysa, Nikki Gordon Bloomfield, Polly Mina, Andrew Lamoureux, Jennifer Fuss, Zone 1 Librarian, Jenny Mabel, and Michael Hardy. Thank you so much. I hope you appreciate me being a dorky weirdo that's totally off key with any sort of beat, but thank you so much, patrons. I love you all.